Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in. I'm Robbie.
I'm Jason.
And welcome to the table. Excited for another episode. We are on episode 32. Jason, feels like we were just together.
I know, it's pretty crazy. Like it literally feels like it was 2 days ago. I don't know if it was 2 days ago, but it kind of feels like we're hanging out 2 days ago. Wow, time flies when you're having fun.
Absolutely. Y'all just got back from a trip in Lynchburg for the week. Got up there, we filmed some stuff, played some games, had a great time. Jason is going on a trip, so we're filming a little early. But hey, it's going to be a great episode regardless. We're doing a game that we talked about is going to have to be on the podcast for a long time. It's going to be the easiest cookie scale that I've given maybe in the entirety of it's going to be quite straightforward, but man, is this game so good. And we actually want to spend time getting to flesh it out as a full episode. But before we dive into the main topic, Jason, what games have you been playing lately?
What games? What was tough about that? Tough is relative because if for those who listened to the last episode, I was sick. So Liz and I were both sick. So we didn't really play anything for the previous 2 weeks. So when Robbie came, we played a number of games. So that's basically, Robbie didn't have to put it in. I just gave him 2 games to talk about. And I'm talking about 2 other games. One I actually gave him to play in the hospital because Liz and I played it. Another one. So the first one is a game called Western Legends Showdown. It's what they call an 18 card game, a pocket game. And that it's for those who listen to the Smash Up episode, it's Smash Up-esque in that you have like 5 or 6 locations. And for a game, you put out 3 locations. Each player has 7 or 8 cards. And they're basically like poker cards. There's 2 1s, a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And they have the numbers on there, but they also have rules on there with things you can do when you play them. And the goal is to play a card at a location. And if you meet that goal, like one of the goals of the locations is have 2 black and 2 red. Now, what I didn't say was that one player is always black, one player is always red. But if you have 2 black, 2 red, you win that spot. So you take those cards into your hand. And then the play stays open the rest of that round. The goal of the game is just to have the most cards at the end of each round. And you play 3 rounds, and that's it. I'm oversimplifying it, but there's a lot of it's meant to be a quick game. Most pocket games like that are meant to be super quick. And once you know how to play, you can play it really fast. It gets fun because there's one card that if you play the wallop, which is number 1, you can always play another wallop with it. There's one that's if you play this card on a stack, you can move the entire stack over to another stack. So you can rearrange. So your opponent may be trying to go for this one, but you can play this card and move it over. There's one that just automatically wins the stack. I think if it plays on an unempty stack, the number 7s of both cards, if you play it on a stack that already has cards, you just automatically win that stack. So it's pretty cool. Elizabeth beat me. Like we played 3 rounds. She beat me 2 rounds and I almost brought back to a tie. But I mean, it's not the heaviest game in the world, but for a quick game, possibly playing in the hospital while you're going through labor, hanging out with a baby afterwards, just a thought. And not super complex at all. Like I said, Lindsay, because it's Smash Up-esque in that you're playing cards at a location to try to win that location. You're not attacking each other, but you're playing cards that let you do stuff, which of course is what makes Smash Up so fantastic. Western Legends Showdown, I actually gave it to Robbie when he was here, so hopefully he'll be able to play it some. The other one we played is a game I'll go and tell you now is a good chance it'll be a Bards episode eventually, because after I played it, I was reminded how much I like it. Cooperative game called Horrified. It's actually a very popular series in the board game world. There's Horrified Greek monsters, Horrified American monsters, and I think there's a 4th one coming out. And ours was Horrified Universal Monsters. It's just called Horrified, but I think that like Star Wars and all those later episode ones, they added a title to it. You're using the Universal Monsters. So in Horrified, it's a cooperative game where you're working together to basically protect villagers on a board and eliminate the monsters on the board. We played Creature from the Black Lagoon and Dracula, which is the suggested starting setup. And it's just a cool game which you each have asymmetric powers, and a la Pandemic, on your turn you can do 4 or 5 actions depending on your person. You can move, you can pick up items, you can take action at a certain location by using those items to do something. And it's just these items that are red, blue, and they're just little cards that may say gun or knife or whatever. The actual thing doesn't matter, but there's a number value on there. So you're moving around the board, picking up items, dropping off items, trying to avoid the monsters. You can use those monsters to block attacks. We won pretty easily, but we played the entry level one, which isn't the easiest one. There's actually an easier level than that one. Playing one monster is easier. 2 monsters is the standard. I think there's 6 monsters. You can play all 6 if you want the hardest possible version of it. But we went through pretty easily, but me and Elizabeth and Robbie are really good gamers who cooperated really well. And so it wasn't a surprise that it takes some time. So you got to go through the actions, but it was methodical because you win the game when you eliminate the monsters. You lose the game if your frenzy level goes to like 7, and our frenzy level got to 1, I think. If it even got to 1, I can't remember. Like just because you get frenzy level, you get knocked out, or if you lose a village or something. So we were doing really good. Heartfide's a really, really good game. Absolutely. It will be on Bards eventually. I'm taking it to Canada if we have time to play with a smaller group because it's a kind of cooperative game that there's so much talk, but it's just good talk. Like Pandemic gives you this anxiety and this worry, and it truly does. But that's what makes Pandemic great. I mean, it's in the name, right? Yeah. Horrified is more chill because you can control that, you control the challenge of it. And in playing that, you just talk a lot, and it's super social and it was fun. So I loved Horrified. What did you think about it, Robbie?
I thought it was wonderful. I completely agree. I think it's going to be a fantastic episode that people can really lean into. And you had Elizabeth on the table who hates cooperative games, and I would put both of us in the net neutral realm, like where I'm not jazzed to run out and it's not cooperative games are not pretty much ever at the top of my list, but I'm also not the person that's like, I just have a bad taste in my mouth the moment that I hear about them. So I thought it went really well. And I even mentioned it in Pandemic, when actions occur, there is a chance that it's just always not even a chance. It's always bad. And so sometimes you can get the wrong cards that compound on each other. And it's just we were okay, but because something bad has to happen, now we just instantly lose the game, which creates a really sour feeling. That's
a great point. Great point.
I did think in Horrified, I liked that while we felt in control, I don't really see a turn of action that's going to come out that we're just oh no, we lose. It doesn't, a loss doesn't sneak up on you, but you could easily, there was a moment where it was oh yeah, I'm going to die. I am trapped between the 2 monsters. They're both hunting me down. You guys just go have a good time. And maybe that's my role is I just get got. So I thought it was really good. I'm very intrigued by the other versions as well. My mom is a big Universal Monsters fan. So it's on the list for me to get for her I think this would be really fun, to introduce her to when we're around for the holidays and we're all sitting there. Just once again, stage of life that we're walking into. I'm thinking about okay, I've got Leo, I'm hanging out with him. I have him in my arm. This is an easy game for me to play while he's napping in my arms or something like that. Or I can stand up and just be standing next to the table, rocking him, do my turn and still be involved in the conversation. And I did appreciate that it was it was super, super light, super light with room to go crazy with it.
Yeah.
Because I kind of want the chaos one time with the right people. Okay. Let's just put them all out there. All 6 monsters.
Yeah. Hannon will have the American Monsters version. Or Greek. They have one of those. So before we do the episode, I would definitely play it with them and have that feedback so we can at least compare the two. But I agree. I would love with me, you and Elizabeth, or just 2-player version, just go after the monsters chaotically with 4 or 5 and just see. You're probably gonna lose, but can you pull it off? Can you do just enough sneaking around? Maybe we tactically choose the characters we play because we know that's the best chance we have. So cool.
Yeah. So speaking of games that are not lightweight, we played a game called Cat in the Box. And Cat in the Box, the subtitle of the game is a quantum trick-taking game.
Yeah.
Something along those lines.
Yeah, something like that.
And when Jason was putting the box out there, I was what a bold title to put on a game. To play, to describe your own game as a quantum game, a quantum thinking game. My initial thoughts were that's just aggressive. There's no way that it's actually that. It's a board game and it's trick taking at best. But Cat in the Box, 100% completely agree with the title. It is a thinky game. So for the trick takers out there, traditionally you have numbers and suits. And so there are traditionally usually 4 suits, and the numbers range from, in a standard, you have a deck of cards from 2 to ace, or you have in rook, it's not like, it's still numbers. And then you have, we've talked about the crew before, where numbers 1 through 9, all these different variances. So Cat in the Box allows you to grow up to, I believe, 5 players. And when you do that, you can get more and more numbers added. But there are no suits printed on the cards. So all of us have a hand that we're dealt, and they just are numbers. And then there's a board with blank spaces for every color and every number that you could have in your hand. So whoever's leading decides they're going to play 5. And then they say what color that 5 is. Let's say they say it's blue. So they put a marker on blue 5. That now means that the blue 5 has been played. So anyone else who has a 5 in their hand cannot make that a blue 5. So it's like there's a pool. It's not even like there is a pool of cards that you are collectively pulling from to take tricks and win tricks. And you have traditional trick taking, where you have to make proper bets that are accurate. You have traditional trick taking, and you have to follow suit, and you can throw off suit. There's trump. There's some really cool factors to it. But the quantum side is that while you're claiming tricks, you get more points for basically layering and connecting what numbers you're taking. So if you decide to be aggressive and you want to take 4 tricks, you're trying to pair all of the cards that you're taking from the pool on one side of the board. Or if you're trying to be passive, because you do have to make like a bet that you are going to take at least 1 trick. That's the bare minimum. And so you're betting on the shallow side of the pool, and you're trying to get the correct number of tricks, which I really enjoy. That I'm always about when trick taking makes you be accurate on your betting. That's a game we talked about Up and Down the River before, where the entire point of trick taking in that game is to just bet accurately. It's not to take the most tricks or the least tricks, things like that. It's just to bet accurately. So I love that. And then I really love that you end up in paradoxes, which is basically, can you not play a card? Because you're looking at the cards you have in your hand. You're looking at the pool of cards that are technically available on spaces. It's just really, really cool. I thought it was a blast. It's another one that, coming from a trick taking family, I would be fascinated to play that with my mom and dad, who taught me how to be a trick taker. Yeah. Because I think that, like, from just raw trick taking potential, that can only take you so far in this game, which I thought was really, really cool. How'd you feel about Cat in the Box?
Yeah, I felt the same way. I love and we said this when we were at the table, like, I would never, ever, ever play Cat in the Box with somebody who didn't know trick taking or only was a casual trick taker. Like, you could teach, we talked about with the crew, you could teach trick taking with the crew when those early missions, right? Because they're not that hard, and you can actually teach the concept of trick taking. Cat in the Box is not a teach trick taking concept, right? It is so thinky. It is so wild. I loved it, but it easily coexists in the world with the crew, because they're such different games. Trick taking's all they got in the same. That's it. That's literally the only thing they got in there. But what Robbie, I don't think Robbie did say, the other thing that's very unique about Cat in the Box that I love, that makes the quantum side even harder, is that, so in a 3-player game, there's 6 numbers, but there's 5 of every number instead of 4. So when you're in traditional trick taking, you have a whole deck, okay, 3 4s have been played, so there's 1 more 4. Well, there's a chance there's actually a 5th 4 out there, which could cause that paradox. That extra little thinking and we even talked about, you start learning little strategies. Like, if I get 4 4s in my hand, I'm just going to get rid of 1, because I know I at least got 3 of the 4s. I'm guaranteed to play all 3 of my 4s. If I get 4, like, whatever, right? There's all kinds of deeper strategy you learn as you go. I wouldn't want to play it a ton, because it hurts my head so much. I'd rather just go jump into the crew and play that like we did on our last night, just to have fun with trick. Not that Cat in the Box is fun, but it's thinky. Yeah. Whereas when we're playing the crew, well, also because the crew's cooperative, so we're very chatty in the crew, because we're trying to win. We're all trying to win collectively, whereas Cat in the Box is competitive. So our chatty may be a little trash talking and trying to throw each other off, right? So when Elizabeth caused like 3 paradoxes in the first game, it was fantastic. I eventually started doing paradoxes, and Robbie never did, because Robbie is our best trick taker. So it was fun. I enjoyed it. It's one that you need good trick takers. You need people who've been brought up trick taking, who know it well, know the concepts, the natural ways you do, because then they have to spend their mind on how am I going to play this now? Because it's not a partnered game. It's all single. Very cool. I liked it.
Yeah. Perfect information. When you're playing trick taking, there is perfect information, because you know there are 4 of this, bang, bang, bang. So it definitely flips things on its head, because very rarely in trick taking do you not have all the cards available. So yeah, I can almost, like, thinking about that cause of paradoxes. That's funny, because I almost have to believe that's what caused all the paradoxes, were like, oh, I'm going to be it. Whereas like when I was drafting my hand every time, I literally was like, unless I have 4 of it, I'm probably not going to keep more than 2 of any card, because I don't want, like, I want to be able to fluff off any one of these numbers. Whereas traditionally trick taking, you want to have like a very almost imbalanced hand, because that lets you control things better. So I used you like discard 1 card before you start the round, which was fascinating on like, what am I going to discard? So, but the other game we played was Res Arcana. I kept wanting to go to Arcana because I just watched Arcane on Netflix. But Res Arcana, and this is a tableau builder where I really like. Tableau builder is about as much as I feel like I can slot it into a box.
Hand management as well, because you start with 8 cards, and so you have you have 8 cards the entire game. So you're managing your hand. It's not a deck builder. It's not a card shedding game. Hand management, tableau builder. You hit it. Yeah.
So you're going to basically be acquiring these resources, these pieces of magic, to sort of go into a market and gather resources to build your tableau, and you're working towards 10 victory points, 10 points overall. And what's really cool about the game is that there are a lot of abilities. If you come from a trading card background, it's really cool because you can use a lot of your tableau as resources. So it's not just a straight up like, I went to this spot and it gave me 3 wood, check. It is, I built this card from my hand of 8 cards, and now at the start of every turn, one of the cards I had was like, it gave me a green and a blue resource. There's 4 like main color resources that you can get, and it gave me 2 of those. But during my round, I could just auto generate more resources off of that card as well. And so I ended up with building this tableau that just did a lot of resource generation, and I just started doing it. And then on one turn I got 1 point, on the next turn I got 3 points, and on the next turn I ended the game. Like, it was because I just acquired resources. And I even, at one point during the game, I mentioned, like, I think by the time that I get to use any of these resources, it's just going to be over. And it was, I just was unaware on the pacing of the game that I would be the one who made it over. But the really cool part is that at the end of the round, one of the functional pieces is check for score, which I thought was very, very unique, because often when there's turn order involved in a game, you are like really it shows how important turn order is, because most games where there is turn order, there is some form of advantage passed along to everyone going later, whether that is additional resources you get for going later. You've spent less resources, a la 5 Tribes, in order to go later. However it is, like, the advantageousness of getting to go later. What's really I enjoyed about Res Arcana is that it was very balanced in when you're trying to do those things. Like, I don't even remember how many rounds there were, but I only had the first player token once and still felt like I was able to accomplish everything that I wanted to accomplish during the game, which is not a feeling you get very often. So it was a really cool one, in that I think if you're a heavy gamer, this game scratches an itch in terms of, because it doesn't fall into a lot of categories. But I also think if you're a light to medium gamer, this could be a game for you if you're trying to get into the board game hobby. I'm thinking of my Ryan and Abby friends that collect board games but are still trying to like grow their collection, or their friend Christian, who is like more of a board game acquirer right now than a board game player, just because he doesn't have the crew established yet to like get to the table to play them. This could be a phenomenal game for them to pick up that really gets them going. And they're very strategic people in general. So it's like it kind of is a very adaptive game in what crowds it can reach to. Does it have like a pretty big following?
It's one of those things that lots of people know it, lots of people like it, but you just don't hear a ton of people really rave about it. But it's one, I was double checking. I mean, it's still like 158 on BGG, which is very high when there's over 100,000 games on BGG. But it has 2 expansions that are pretty good, and just keep adding more stuff. We showed you one with the pearls. It's one of those that when people mention, oh yeah, Res Arcana is really good, they don't really think about it or necessarily put it on their top 100 lists. But when people bring it up, it's like, yeah, that's a good one. I forget about it, because you kind of encapsulated it. Because it's not really, if you're a brand new player, it's too much for a brand new player. But if you are a newer player who's played some stuff, this can give you that, okay, I can move up in the world and now learn, okay, this is, because it becomes this tableau builder, hand management, which basically is an engine builder as well, because you're making your tableau into an engine in its own way, because when you're tapping cards to do stuff. But as you said, it helps a heavier gamer can scratch that itch. You hit the nail on the head when you said that. And I hadn't really thought about it that way, but you can be a heavier gamer. I'm like, okay, this is going to give me enough cool little mechanisms I get to do. And a lighter gamer is like, okay, I'm learning to do these heavier level things that you have to combo to make it well. And there's, we didn't draft the cards, but the next iteration of it is you actually draft your starting hand, whereas we just dealt them out. Whereas when you draft, as you know the game, now you're trying to build that, throws that extra level of card drafting at the beginning of it for that hand management. It's one that I wouldn't necessarily want to play it all the time, because it's repetitive, but it's diverse enough. There's much different things, but you're tapping cards to get resources to buy cards to do this. You're tapping cards to get. So there's a level of repetitiveness of it, but you're doing it in different ways. And when you add the expansions, it's one that I'd almost say the Pearl is almost an essential expansion. You can play without it, and it's fine. But once you do it, it's like, okay, I'll never play without it unless I'm teaching it. We could have played with the expansion, but you would have picked it up very fine. But it was just easier to jump right into the basic one. So yeah. I'm glad. I figured you liked it. I knew from the early times of us talking that because it's, and you referenced it, if you come from a collectible card background, it gives you enough of that itch to do collectible card game stuff in a board game. Tapping cards to activate them to do stuff.
Yeah, combos were very, very present because like there was a moment, one of the cards, when you tap it, you get something for just getting the card. You get victory points. But then when you tap the card, you get a resource. But if you have another type of card, a very specific type of card, and you tap both of them, you get like straight up great victory points. Yeah. So it was like, oh, Jason even said, he was like, yeah, I really wanted to go for that one, but I like don't know if I had a dragon in my deck or not. Like I didn't have a dragon in order to really lean into and use that. And I'm sitting there looking at my hand and I'm like, I literally have a dragon in my hand right now. That's where I was going. Like that just helps me feel better from like I was moving in the right direction. Awesome. Check. So I think if I were teaching Res Arcana, I would almost make sure that it's like, hey, like if you ever have like Jimmy over or Dakota over to play, because I don't know how Marissa would handle it. Like, I don't know if she would enjoy it at all. I think she could, but it would definitely be, yeah, she'd have to want it. Right. But if I were having someone over, I would be like, hey, we're just going to play Res Arcana tonight, but we're going to play it twice. Yeah. So the first time I'm going to deal out the decks, do 8 cards, and then you're going to have an idea for it. Cause I think that the drafting side, like immediately going into drafting it again could be really, really cool.
For sure.
And there's enough cards that you wouldn't really have to, I'm guessing you wouldn't have to.
You could actually just rotate, you would probably shuffle them back in just in case you could get some of the cards. That way, it hasn't been stacked disproportionately, but there's enough you could just do 2 separate games with 3 players.
Yeah.
There's enough cards for that.
Yeah. So Speaking of drafting, pulling cards, things like that, today's episode is all about a classic, one that is near and dear to the channel. One of the first games that I ever got to play at Jason's house, and that is Wingspan. So, Jason, you want to tell us a little bit about this game?
Absolutely. I'll also tag on. It's the first game Robbie cheated at my house as well. Unbeknowing, accidentally, he smoked us all because we all read the card wrong. Every one of us read the card wrong, and Robbie will reference it in this game tonight for sure.
I referenced it in Res Arcana, literally when we were playing it. I was like, I don't want to have another. I
was like, this card feels OP, but we didn't really look it up online at the time. And so anyway, that was one of the first games. All right, we're talking about Wingspan. Finally, we've talked about it for a while, so I'm glad this is going to be here. So Wingspan was released in 2019. Even for me, 5 years is a long time, but not. And I've been playing Wingspan since 2000, and I feel like it was an older game then, so I don't know. That doesn't really make sense. But 2019 just feels so long ago, right? Designed by Elizabeth Hargrave. This was actually her first, I think technically it was her first published game, but her second design game. She knocked it out of the park very early. Published by Stonemaier Games, one of my favorite. Probably if I had to pick a single publisher, who's my favorite publisher, Stonemaier Games, just love his stuff. Plays 1 to 5 players with a really good solo mode. It's one of the best solo modes out there. Plays in 40 to 70 minutes, which I think is pretty accurate. Currently number 31 on the BGG Top 100. And it's also, we're going to mention an award we haven't talked about. It's called the Kennerspiel. So the Kennerspiel, it won that award. So there's the Spiel. You hear say generic say Spiel, it's Game of the Year. Typically, the Spiel is not a super heavy game. Like it's games like Splendor and Cascadia and Quack's not heavy.
King Domino.
King Domino, right. There's the Kinderspiel, which is more, it's called kids games, but often lightweight games get put into the Kinderspiel. Well, a number of years ago, they created the Kennerspiel, which is really for a little bit heavier games. So the Kinderspiel is just as prestigious. It hasn't been around as long. Just a little history on the game. So, but Kinderspiel Yaris winner, as well as a ton. If you go to BGG and just look at all the insane amount of awards Wingspan got, it's just crazy. I mean, my score won't be a surprise. My cookie rate won't be a surprise at the end either because it deserves all those awards. So, Wingspan is a competitive, medium weight, card driven, engine building board game that features over 170 birds, beautiful illustrations, amazing illustrations by Beth Sobel, Natalia Rojas, and Ana Maria Martinez. And Wingspan, you're bird enthusiasts, researchers, bird watchers, ornithologists, and collectors seeking to discover and attract the best birds to your network of wildlife preserves. Each bird extends a chain of powerful combinations in one of your habitats, i.e. the actions you're going to take in those habitats. These habitats focuses on several key aspects of growth: gaining food tokens via custom dice in a dice tower, with a real cool bird feeder dice tower that comes with the game, laying eggs using little egg miniatures that come in the game, and drawing from hundreds of unique bird cards and playing them in those respective habitats. It's a 4-round game. The winner at the end of the 4 rounds with the most points. The winner at the end of the 4 rounds is the player with the most points. Super high summary, but that actually really captures it. We'll go much deeper into all the actions for that. What do you think about the setup and teach, Robbie?
Yeah. So, as someone who has well over 100 games of this logged, I have well over 100 games logged. Of those, 90 plus are digital. And I am grateful that it is digital. I think that the setup is very easy. It's very straightforward. One thing, as someone who has taught this game a lot, I love teaching while I set this game up. Mm-hmm. It's one of the few games, lots of games that are out there. I feel like you're trying to, while you want to get the whole thing set up because it's confusing that you're like adding elements while you're explaining it all. I've got my teach really dialed for this game. And this is something, if you're getting into the hobby, you'll find over and over again. You've just taught this game so many times that the words you use, the jokes you use, the pacing of it all, you've just got like really figured out. I'm sure that Jason has way more games that fall into that category than myself, but I think of a game that I could tell Jason has taught a lot. Space Base. Is
that the one? Yeah.
Was that the one where we were rolling the die and
you get rockets and turn them upside down?
Yeah. That's a game that I feel like Jason could literally almost like have his eyes closed and literally just be pointing to things when the board's all set up. But if you don't have the board all set up, that game gets super confusing to try to like teach people. So the components of this incredibly nice. And we'll talk about that near the end, because there's actually the components in the box are basically my only drawback of the whole thing. And Stonemeyer, even like they said, we messed up on what we did, on why I disagreed with like what you were getting and things like that. So, but the setup, super easy. You're shuffling all these cards. There are an insane amount of cards, which is so cool. The biggest thing about the teach is it's very straightforward. I think the teach is super easy. The problem is because it doesn't feel like a big cognitive load to start. It feels like you can kind of get off to the races and get running. The moment that you see someone know what they're doing, though, it's rare for me to see a game that people go from feeling so confident to so shell shocked in the first turn. Like it happens almost every time I play this game with new people, and I still, as confident as I am in teaching, I kind of just have to tell people the first game, you're not going to do probably something crazy, and just be ready for that, because it is an engine builder to its core, but how you get that engine going can feel really overwhelming. Once again, like I said, when you see someone who knows what they're doing, take off to the races.
Yeah, totally agree. Because you're right. At its heart, the three main actions are getting birds, take an action to get some cards, putting eggs on birds, or getting food, or the fourth action is actually playing a bird, right? Those are actually pretty easy. I got enough resources, I play the bird. If I do this, but then the cognitive load builds once the bird's powers come out. And like you said, if someone knows how to, from the initial play of their cards and the initial prep of the game, if they know what's going, they will quickly run away from it as well. Because the just like the powers, and there's 170 all unique, 170 birds in the base game. Every one of them is unique. The powers aren't necessarily all unique. Some of them have duplicate powers, but every single card in there is a unique bird. But the powers in there, some are obvious and some don't quite make sense to newer players. Because like you said, they're going to be like, I don't really understand how this helps me until you see someone else do it. Even if they explain to you how it helps, it won't really register until you do it yourself. So like I said, that first game for some of those powers, like if this bird's to the far right, move it somewhere else. So like, why would I want to move the bird around? Well, because it makes every other action more powerful. So absolutely.
Yeah. And so from the get-go, you're going to be making a lot of decisions on your setup, which is to me one of the biggest like perks to this game. Yep. There are so many ways to win, especially when you start adding in expansions. This is one that I know when we did Pandemic, Jason's scale kind of included, his cookie rating included all of the expansions. This one, because the expansions, one expansion added a new resource that exists, and lots of folks who play, like you'll find within the Wingspan community, it's like that one resource is so overpowered that it just inflates scores to an incredible level. So you'll have some people who are like, I just want the birds. I want more expansions because I want more birds, which creates more play line opportunities. And it's, you stand on one side of Nectar or the other. If you're a Wingspan lifer, like I either love it because it allows me to go huge, or I hate it because I have to play for Nectar. Like I have to have this involved. And so while it opens scoring potential, it also very much limits your game, and certain birds sort of get unbalanced very quickly. But you're making a lot of decisions because you're going to get 5 birds to start, and you get to decide how many do you want to keep. You can keep all 5. That's totally fine. You can keep none and just get 5 resources. Yep. So for that alone, most people are like, I don't know what a good bird and a bad bird is when you're first learning the game. So most people overkeep. They usually keep 3 to 4. And I would say, if you're playing with lifers, unless you have great birds, you're usually keeping 2 at most. Because you want to get things going, things moving. And then you're like looking at, okay, how do I utilize these actions? Because once again, I said before we started this, I'm going to have to keep myself in check. Talk about the theme, Jason, because the cards themselves, I don't know if you have the cards with you.
I did not pull them out, unfortunately, because I have them in my big box right here.
Yeah,
and I was like, it's underneath all that. I bought the nesting box, which holds everything. And so I didn't bring out any cards. I'm sorry about that.
No, tell them about the theme and the cards themselves, because I think it's a really cool feature.
For sure. Like when I did the overview, the game is you are attracting birds to one of 3 habitats. So the birds themselves, some birds only go to the forest, or some birds only go to the wetlands, right? And there's little icons on there that clearly tell you where they go. So like the idea is you're attracting there based on putting out, you're getting resources to bring them there. But also thematically, you're learning about those birds as well, because on the base game cards, it has stats at the bottom of every single thing that says what area of the world those birds come from, or what area of North America they may come from, or what area of Europe if you're using European expansion, as well as some other interesting things on there. Another cool thing, and this gets into production, but well, I don't want to jump ahead. That's the bonuses I'm thinking about. But the theme is there in that you're surrounded by these beautiful birds and this beautiful artwork, and you can just see and hear the birds, right? I'm not joking that when I played it in Alabama, I didn't necessarily want to be a bird watcher, but now that we're here and I have bird feeders out my window and I play Wingspan, I'm like, I really want to learn more about birds because it's just really cool. And the artwork is so striking. And some people ignore the flavor text altogether. Sometimes when I play it, I'll read the flavor text out for the fun of it because it's fun. And sometimes I just play it because I'm min-maxing everything I do. But I think, do you feel like an ornithologist? Okay, I don't have my hat on my book out, but the principle is there, and that I'm getting to bring these beautiful birds to my habitat that I'm growing. So you could definitely appreciate the theme. At least I can appreciate the theme there.
Yeah. If there's an app for this that is incredible, I've mentioned it and I will continue to mention it.
Yep.
One of the features you can turn on for the app is whenever someone plays a bird, it reads one of the facts about the birds out loud, which there's seasons where I go through, if I'm like laying in bed at night and Lindsay's sleeping, I turn that feature off. But like, if that's not the case, like if I'm at my desk playing, I absolutely will turn that on because I just think it's really fun to have, as someone who loves trivia, those facts are super great and carry them around. And it really does. You just get so used to seeing all of these birds that suddenly you're walking around and you're like, there are so many birds that I can name. And it's funny because the facts are starting to blend with like, oh, I know that bird is a tuck one, draw one. Like I know that bird, but then I'm like, oh, I really look forward to that bird. So then the next time I play it, when I see that bird pop up, it's like locking the fact in or things like that. So it is the theming phenomenal. It's a tough theme to get into. It's not like a Japanese theme. It's not a Vikings theme. It's not post-apocalyptic. It's birds.
Yeah.
If you don't like birds, the nice thing is, the game's still amazing. Like I did not walk into Wingspan as a birder. No interest in birds. I love owls. So I knew I should probably look for owls, but that it's funny how the theme, as the theme guy of the podcast, the theme is so hard to get into, but in terms of packaging, it is undoubtedly Wingspan, which is really cool.
And I'll say this: Wingspan is a phenomenon for sure. Like so we're doing a little side here and get out of the deeps of it. But when the game first came out, a lot of people would accuse Jamie Stegmaier of tanking or of not front loading the system and basically tanking, not printing enough to cause higher demand. But he's like, I had no way to know that this theme was going to be so popular and this game was going to be so popular. So they ran out of print run after print run after print run. He's like, because if you make a game, and any publisher will tell you that, they really don't know how many they're going to sell. So if they print 50,000, they only sell 10,000, they're paying someone to keep those in storage. So they're actively losing money it's not much different than disc golf. If you don't own your own warehouse, like most board game folks don't own their warehouse, they're paying someone else to store it. And every day that game sits on the shelf is a day it's depreciating because they're paying to put that on the shelf. And so the worldwide phenomenon is well over 1.5, close to 2 million sales. That's a lot of, for a game that's 5 years old, being close to 2 million is crazy because Ticket to Ride is whatever, 20 or 30 years old. And it's like something like 40 million. but I mean, there's a reason why Ticket to Ride is on the Mount Everest of board games, right?
Totally.
And Jamie for years had a hard time keeping up with production, and now it's there. You can always get Wingspan, but it is crossed over, right? Birders will get into Wingspan because they see this at something where they would go, like this beautiful one. And I'll say it later on when we talk about art. It's probably my favorite. I'll grab it. It's probably my favorite box cover of any game I've ever seen. It's still, I forgot what the name of this bird is. Whenever this bird comes out, I have to get it, even if it doesn't match my strategy. If this bird gets in the row, I'm grabbing it all the way. I love it so much.
It's a tail something.
Yeah, but it's brought people from board gaming into bird watching, and reverse. It brought nature folks who like birds into playing board gaming, and it's just done this very interesting crossover that is crazy for sure. So that's where maybe in Robbie's right. The theme isn't necessarily what we're thinking about, but that theme, at least the adjacency of it, has pulled in more people into the hobby and has spread Wingspan out, and it's great. Like it's so interesting to hear Jamie talk about these stories. I've heard Elizabeth Hargrave, the designer, talk about how she's heard so many things, because almost every game she designs is very nature themed. She has one on butterflies. She has one on mushrooms. She has one on roses or flowers. So she's very nature focused. But even they had no idea it was going to be what it is to what it is today. Like this runaway hit.
Yeah. Scissor-tailed flycatcher.
There we go. The it's just so cool. Like I love that. I love that so much. So I remember the first time I ever saw it at Barnes & Noble, I was like, I didn't know what that was, but I just knew the game looked amazing. But it was Barnes & Noble and it was like $80, so I wasn't going to buy it there. So I had to wait and buy it at another price appropriately. So,
and it's eye-catching. It's eye-catching, and truly that theme, it looks beautiful. It looks fantastic, but you're like, it's just a game about birds. Like,
yeah, exactly.
I'm probably not that interested. And then you play it and you're like, okay, that was sick. That was amazing. So, game length. I think the game length is rather intriguing about this, because I feel like if you play a game of, it says 40 to 70 minutes. I think it is so spot on, because if you're playing I've played this game with 5 people before. Yep. I was the only one that had played the game before, and we still finished in about 90 minutes with 4 people having never played before. The first time that I played, the cheating scandal, 3 of us had never played, 2 had. And so and it still probably came in close to 90 minutes. Yeah. So it's fascinating to me how balanced it is, in that you kind of figure out the game as it goes. And there are a lot of games where Flamecraft that we covered on the podcast, in Flamecraft, when you get to the end of the game, you kind of have to sit there and think about your turn, because there's so many combo pieces that can occur that it's like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this. So you have to play a lot of scenarios out in your head. In this one, you kind of all lock in, because it's an engine builder. Yep. You get towards the final turns and you start realizing, like, okay, this is the best thing that I have going for me in terms of points. I need to run that part of my engine over and over again. It also has a really cool mechanic that I think helps with game length that you don't see in a lot of games. And that is that you actually get less turns the more the game goes on. So you start there are 4 rounds, and each round has an end of round scoring goal that is unique. You have private scoring goals that are unique, and then birds gather you points as you play them and draw them into your habitats. On the first round, you're going to get 8 actions, or 8 turns. So you basically have these little markers, and you play them out, and you do one of the 4 basic actions: play a card, get resources, get eggs, draw birds. That's it. So you're going through, and then as you draw and play birds onto your habitat, those actions become more powerful. The reason for this is that my draw a bird action in turn 3 of round 1, I may literally just be drawing 2 birds. But by round 4, I only get 5 actions 5 turns per round. But when I go to play that, there are 4 other birds stacked up in that category or that habitat that all do unique things. So it's almost like that action, instead of just drawing birds, also does 4 other actions to build my engine, which is really, really cool. But I've thought about this a lot. I do think that's why the time's like so accurate.
Yeah.
Just because you do lose actions.
Yeah, that is, you're right. There's probably other games that have that mechanism that you take less turns, but you get to do more as you go. But I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. And it's definitely one of the, I forgot to even put that there, so I'm glad you pointed out. One of the coolest things in that entire game is that you're taking less turns, but depending on your engine is going, you're getting more actions. And you captured it so well, because really, especially for experienced games, if it's your first game, you may be kind of thinking, well, should I get eggs or should I try to get resources? But if you played it more than once or twice, that fourth round, especially those last few turns, your turns may be a little longer because you have 4 birds out there and you're activating every bird, which may let you do something, may let other people do something. Or maybe just getting eggs and put on eggs and stuff, right? So it's not super long because there's not really a lot of AP in running that engine, analysis paralysis. Earlier in the game, you may have a little AP and do I want to try to do this or do that? But once the engine's going, you're just running that engine for someone who's played multiple times. One cool thing, and we're about to get into the deeper strategy of it, but one thing I want to highlight that I just kind of did was that one of the other fun things about Wingspan is that a lot of the actions you can do on birds when you're activating them can benefit other people as well, right? You could do, everyone gets to draw a card. Everyone gets a worm. Everyone can lay a bird on this particular, an egg on this particular bird. Now you can lay one more. But you don't have to activate that. So when you are going through and activating your birds in those habitats, you can choose to do it and help everybody out, or you can not choose to do it. It's not really a take that, and it's not necessarily a negative interaction. You can do a positive interaction or just no interaction. So that's really cool. I think some of the other later expansions let you take someone else's resources, but they still get something replaced it. So there's never really a true pure negative interaction. There's not a lot of there's no pure interaction other than you make do bonus stuff when other people do stuff as well. So I love that ability about as well, that you can do something that helps everybody else, and you could be the recipient of someone doing something. Oh wow, I get an extra thing because when I'm playing on BGA, I look up and I'm like, oh wow, I have a worm and a berry. I don't know how I got that worm and berry. I guess somebody did something for me, so now I don't have to take the food action because I just got food for myself and I didn't have to actually go take that action.
Yeah, it is. When you really get into the high levels of strategy for this, because there are like world championship circuits of Wingspan where people are playing this from all over the world together online. And watching some of that strategy is so fascinating to me. But I'm also a guy that, like, I'm a lifer. When I find a game I love, I am all in on it. So, but Jason nailed it. Like, positive player interaction is something that is so big for Jamie Stegmaier, who is the owner of Stonemaier Games, who produces this game. And that is what you get. Even like Jason said, when you get into the later expansions where you do actually have the potential to take a resource, it comes at no real negative to them, because oftentimes they can go and get that exact same resource if it's available in the bird feeder. So I want to talk about the bird feeder, because I think the bird feeder is really cool in terms of, and then kind of talk about like the different cards, because we talked about a lot of the cards and how there's a lot of scoring potential. But the bird feeder is where you get these resources from. And the bird feeder is really cool because the bird feeder, there's two elements to this. Lots of times when you play a board game that has an engine building aspect, there are really overpowered actions, really overpowered mechanics in the game. So how Wingspan balances it is there are two very extremely randomized mechanics that are the birds that are available to everyone, as well as the bird feeder where you gather resources. So in the bird feeder, there's going to be 5 die that get rolled out, and these die have different resources on every side. So when you are drafting resources, very rare bird powers will allow you to get a resource of anything you want from the supply. These can be rats, or rodents, worms, berries, wheat, or fish. So you have those 5 resources that you're like pulling. But the bird feeder, you roll these resources, and then based on what gets rolled, that's what you're able to draft. So you may have and you use these resources to basically lay out food to attract the bird thematically to that habitat. So I may be trying to attract birds that like storks that love the wetlands. So I need 3 fish in order to bring this great heron to my habitat. I need 3 fish. Okay. I'm going to the bird feeder, but no fish have been rolled. So now I have to pivot accordingly in order to try to find the resources. And I can trade 2 for 1s or 3 for 1s. I'm trying to remember what I think it's 2 for 1.
It's 2 for 1 if you are using it to buy or attract another thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I can burn extra resources in order to do that, but obviously that has like a negative drawback in terms of action potential, things like that. So that's really cool. But then also, like Jason mentioned, there's 170 birds in the base game. As soon as you add expansions, there's even more birds. So I may really want to go for a certain strategy, but those birds aren't popping up.
Yeah.
I have to pivot. I have to be able to adjust. It's really cool because I have strategies that I love to do and they bring me so much joy, but it's also a rush for me when I play this game of like, can't be Tuck Game Strong today. We're going to have to go somewhere else.
For sure. Like I was ready to talk about this because I was looking through my BG stats and I have 12 plays and 1 win. Like I'm an okay gamer. My average winning percentage is in the 30 to 40%. I have 1 win in 12 plays ever with Wingspan because of mostly because I'm going to be a little arrogant here. I played a game to have fun. So if I really tried to crunch it, maybe I'd have got an extra win in there, maybe 2, right? But I get so enamored with the cards. I get so enamored with the birds. I get so enamored with trying to go down a path that maybe wasn't presented, but I want to do it. Maybe I want to go Tuck Game Strong. Like we're talking about Tuck Game is one of the actions is tuck a bird underneath your card, underneath your bird, or tuck a card underneath your bird, which is 1 point. Maybe I want to get an egg game. I have birds that can let me play a lot of eggs, which are all 1 point at the end of the game, and hold a bunch of eggs. Maybe it's the bonus cards, right? Because you have your private bonus cards, which more often than not, I feel like when I'm losing on BGA is because other players have more bonus cards than me because you just don't know what those. You can see all their points except their bonus cards. Yeah. Caching's a small one. You could possibly cash food on those birds. The in-round goals. I've won on BGA because of in-round goals. I've lost because of in-round goals, and I've lost by winning every goal. Right? It's just there's so many strategies in there depending on how the cards are presented to you for sure. And that's I get that first initial wave of hands, those 5 cards, and I'm like, okay. And I'm not nowhere near as experienced as Robbie or even Brad. You guys have played way, way, way more games than I ever have of Wingspan. So I can't see really quickly what the potentials are. I can see possibilities compared to average players, but not compared to really good players like y'all. I'm like, okay, if I do this, I do this. I'm like, I'm trying to get low cost bird to get me more food and then maybe start getting more birds, right? That's the general answer of what I'm trying to do. Cause the tough thing about Wingspan and, is that it's hard. It can be hard to get resources. If you can't get resources, it's hard to get birds out there, right? That's Elizabeth's biggest complaint. She's not wrong about that. Wormspan fixes that. Maybe in a year or so, we'll cover Wormspan because I love Wormspan. But if there's a challenge and earlier, if there's a critique of it for me, it's very hard to get resources for sure. And so if you're not getting resources, it's hard to play those birds. But I will go down a path and realize, it's not hitting. Or I want to try to get a tuck game going, but I can't get the birds there to start tucking. Or it's, hey, tuck here and lay an egg or whatever the case may be. But I just get so fascinated and enamored with, this bird looks really pretty. Or this bird is worth 6 points, but it costs 3 resources. I can only get 2 or whatever the case may be. And not paying attention at all to what other people are playing or what they're doing, can definitely lead you down a path of not winning, but I still have an absolutely fun time doing it because there are so many strategies. You can go into it thinking I want to be a tucker or I want to go into it being a bonus card guy. Do you go for 1 or 2 or 2 or 3? And if you diversify too much, it may be great. If you diversify too much, it may not be that great. Not really giving a good answer there other than saying there's so many different things you can do in this game. If you just want the fun of doing the game, right? I say this a lot. I play games more now to have fun and I'm still trying to win. I'm not trying to lose. There's no way I'm trying to lose. I'm trying to do the best with what I'm doing there. But if playing this is going to give me fun, if I'm going to have fun laying birds or laying low cost birds that don't give me a lot of points, but let me lay a lot of eggs, I'm gonna have an egg game and it's gonna be awesome, right? I love there's so many strategies in there that takes a lot of play to kind of figure out how they combo for its best for min max. But every time you play, you're going to do a lot of fun stuff because very few birds. There's a few birds that play this bird and draw 2 cards. Okay, that's not that exciting. Yeah. There's a bird that's, hey, play another bird in this habitat. Well, that doesn't sound exciting, but I'm playing 2 birds at once. Well, that's really exciting to me. So with the variety of cards on there and so many things, I love that. I love that diversity of actions you can do.
Yeah. And it, like, truly, as someone who has spent a lot of time trying to learn all of the different like combo potentials and things like that, like, oh, I want to build an engine that plays a lot of birds. Okay, awesome. I may end up with a ton of resources because I built my engine for resources. So I feel really good about that aspect of things. But now I didn't actually ever get to where I'm able to draw birds efficiently. So like I have all the resources to play these birds, but I don't have any birds to play. How do you balance that? So you really do have to diversify your tableau or your engine really effectively time after time. One thing that I appreciate about this is that if you enjoy trading card games, if you have any connection to trading card games, most of the time when you play trading card games, you're going to walk in with a pre-established deck. That is the whole point of trading card games. So if Jason and I both walk to the same game, we both go to play Lorcana. There are going to be aspects of a deck that attracts Jason to want to play. There's going to be aspects of a deck that make me want to play. And we both sit down at the table with those predetermined.
Yep.
That's like the whole point. We have built an efficient engine. That's the deck we showed up with. This game, what I really love is that you can show up with a desire or a skill set that allows you to combo and play this archetype really well. Tucking, laying eggs, going for big point birds, things like that. But you have to be able to adapt to succeed at this game and win consistently. You have to be, it's like drafting in a trading card game the entire time you play it. So the replayability gets really, really high. And I will say that as someone who has really tried to study a lot of it, those bonus goals that you're talking about, Jason, like the bonus cards, I get it. And I've seen so many people go crazy on those. And I see the pieces falling in place because I was like, okay, they did it. And that's how they did it. Like those were the birds they had. And then I will get those same cards. And it's just like, nope, I got like 45 points. That is duh. So but that's so cool to me that like I could sit alongside someone who also plays this game more than they probably should. And we're still like, we could both put up crazy scores, totally different paths. It is fascinating.
Absolutely. You know, and speaking of the bonus cards, we'll kind of pivot a little bit to production. One of the cool things I mentioned earlier and stopped was the bonus cards. One of the coolest things on there with regard to production, and even theme, is that the bonus card may be 2 points for every card that has a human's name in it or something like that. But at the bottom of the card, it shows you the percentage of cards in the deck that have that. So it's basically your percentage, the chance you have for the base game, that is, the chance you have for getting that, meeting that bonus. It's just super cool. And there's such a wide variety of bonuses. Some are just points per the card. There's one for like 1 or 2 points per bird in your habitat with the least birds. I mean, it's so cool. Elizabeth says Elizabeth Hargrave, that is, not my Elizabeth. She's tried to rebalance out future bonus cards with, it's just, she has this like in the board game world, this world famous spreadsheet where she's mathed everything out and all the cards are connected to try to figure out, okay, this bonus card in the 4th expansion, is it still 20% of the cards in the game? Of course it's not. They do their best. So that's a very specific thing, but like I've already said it before, the production, the art is just, not everybody will love this art. I'm not necessarily a big nature themed guy, but this art speaks to me. It's just so striking and so beautiful and every single thing. And I'm not a bird guy, but even the buzzard that's on there looks like a buzzard, but it's very cool. I mean, everything in there in the art, excuse me, all of the art is amazing.
Yeah. And this is where I have no qualms with this game because the times where it's like, oh, this could be a frustrating piece, I actually think that makes it super balanced so that it's not like, oh man, there are games where you're just trying to draw birds. And like, I will say at 2 players, this game is tough at 2 players just because you're not seeing a ton of birds. If one person is not working a wetlands mechanic where you're drawing birds, it's going to be slow. You're going to have a low scoring game. It's just tough overall. Yep. So I do think that's but all that in mind, my only drawback is there was a production run where Stonemaier had switched to more eco-friendly production. And so they have these bags that came with the game that were these like rice feeling plastic bags. And they are some of the worst bags that I have ever held in a game.
Yeah. I
have to say this because that is the only drawback I have in actually the whole game. And it is so easily fixed. And like I said, they even acknowledged, okay, we tried to go a direction that was like really positive and eco-friendly and all that. And we went we missed. We messed up on that. We own it. Totally fair. And it was this easy. I just put Ziploc bags in there and boom, problem solved. My only qualm with the game was solved by Ziploc bags.
Yeah, and even mine didn't even have that because my copy was so old. It was an earlier print run, so I had the base ones on there. And Stonemaier is very well known for trying to push the boundaries of gaming with that, to try to be more eco-friendly. But he also will own up when it is just not the right answer. He still wants to do what's within the realm of the possible, with what makes sense, for sure. Love that he does that. The other cool thing they kind of pushed is that their rule books have this kind of textured linen finish. They're one of the first people to do that. And now more and more people are doing it because it gives it a little bit more structure and toughness to it. It's a little more sturdy. It's still a piece of paper that folds, but I have so many old games that the rule books are terrible and they're big and people like doing square rule books that are like, oh my gosh. Well, the Wingspan is not quite square. It's still kind of rectangular, but it's sturdy enough that it's not flopping over on itself. And pretty much, I think every Stonemaier game after that has done the linen blended rule book. The two other pieces we'll happily talk about. One is I'll talk about the eggs.
Yeah.
Every game comes with these wooden eggs. They're multicolored. The colors don't matter. People have a hard time getting over the fact the colors don't matter. They don't matter at all. Super cool, high quality. Love the eggs. It's such a popular thing. They've released golden eggs for an Easter egg one year. They released other colored eggs. And I bought them all because they're so fantastic. I love all these eggs. The eggs are really cool. Why don't you talk about the food pieces a little bit, Robbie?
Yeah. So the food pieces are one of those. We talk about quacks early on. When you play quacks, if you play with the upgraded bits, it's so hard to go back to the not plastic bits. I will say that in this, the base game of this, you get these cardboard little circles that have the colors on them. I have no qualms with this because you're not really utilizing the food pieces that often. Yep. The quality went into the cards. You're holding the cards like a card game.
Yep.
You're using the cards like a card game. The boards where you're building your engine on are crazy high quality.
Yep.
All of the expensive production pieces went to the right place.
Yep.
You are moving eggs a lot, and they stand out. They shine because they're quality. That being said, for my birthday, I got upgraded bits of the food. Yeah. I love it. I will never look back. I straight up just threw the cardboard ones away because I was like, this is so much better. It's so nice. People have 3D printed their food pieces. Yeah. They've 3D print. There's so many potentials for it. I can't even look at the cardboard pieces and be like, oh, it's a drawback. It is, but it is the cheap, other than the eco packaging, it's the cheapest feeling thing in it. And it is on par to standard with every other cardboard piece that you've ever used for money in any other game.
That's it. If you've never done quacks and done upgraded pieces, so if you don't own quacks or upgraded pieces, it won't even really make that much sense. And I didn't get the upgraded pieces for Wingspan until after I got quacks upgraded. And then at that point, I'm like, yeah, I didn't really know I needed this, but I upgrade my games too, though. Robbie's dead on. You would never really notice it because think about this. When I play 5 Tribes, the coins are all cardboard. I don't ever complain about those coins being cardboard. Not once. I don't think, oh, I really wish these were metal.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's literally the same thing, right? So I just did it because I like it. I don't even play the game as much as I do quacks, because quacks, there's functionality as we talked about in the episode, to Quack's been upgraded. Absolutely. There's functionality to that. There's no functionality. It's just pretty and it's fun, but it's not needed at all. But if you become like Brad, absolutely upgraded. If you become a Wingspan person, it's highly likely that you'll want to do that, because if you play it a lot, you'll eventually handle that cardboard enough that it will start breaking down a little bit. So, I'll talk about
the die.
Yeah.
The die
the dice, chunky wood dice.
The die are super nice,
really nice,
because they're being used on a regular basis to represent said pieces. Like it's crazy. The investment's so well done.
For sure. The cost right now, as of today, this is Sunday before we drop on Thursday, on Amazon is $42, which is an amazing deal. I think the MSRP is like 60 or something. So if you can get it, if you paid full price for this game, you could probably, you almost never had to pay full price. But if you did, as we already talked about, cardboard food notwithstanding, everything's amazing. The quality of all that is really well in there. But $42 to me is a really good deal. You may see it a little bit under 40 at sometimes for a really good deal. Black Friday is coming up in a few weeks. You may be able to find it that. But I think I looked back up at my purchase and I had paid for like $45 for it, 4 years ago when I bought it off Amazon. So not bad at all. It's tough when you get into heavier games with more components and the high quality talk about, the cost just goes up. If the cost is too high, then don't worry about it. Don't buy it at all. The app is $10. The app is amazing. It is one of the best board game apps I've ever played. And I'm not kidding when I say I probably have 40 board game apps on my iPad. It's easily top 5. Lords of Waterdeep's up there. Dune Imperium's up there. Wingspan's up there. It's just like the game when you know the game. It is so amazing. So if you just want to play the app for $10, you can do that as well.
Yeah. Well, Jason, you want to jump into cookies, man?
Yeah, let's do this.
I feel like this is guys, like if our excitement doesn't show, we could do this all day because the game is that amazing. So without hiding anything, it's a double doozy for me. It is a double doozy through and through. Right now, if you were to ask me what my favorite board game of all time is, Smash Up, just due to sheer number of plays in person, the stories I have, the theming is up there. Give me 2 more years. I have no doubt that Wingspan will hold that spot one day. It could, based on the fact that it's contentious for me right now, means it probably is already there. So if I just feel bad telling my wife, Wingspan's it's come over all of the date nights we've had playing that. So it is amazing. There is almost no drawback to it. The expansions make it so incredible. I will say, when you play the base game, it is a known fact. I'm not going to try to say it here just because I don't want to spoil the play experience you have, but there are some strategies in the initial base game that are just better. The game got better as more expansions were introduced. And so that scoring variance potential really did open up. If you were buying expansions, I would always suggest buying the Europe expansion second. All of the expansions are named after the continents, and you add in birds from that continent. And so I would add, not necessarily continents, they're regions. But because Oceania really messed with us there. But Oceania is the one that added the nectar resource. And so take it or leave it. It's its own thing. And so you have, Europe is great. Truly read the cards, make sure. The Eurasian Nutcracker will always be something that is near and dear to my heart. And if I ever cheat in a game or think that I might be cheating because a card seems too powerful, that is the exact quote that I gave is when we played Res Arcana. I literally was like, this card seems really good. Am I interpreting this way, or am I having a Eurasian Nutcracker situation? And so Jason had to look up that card and be like, okay, yeah, it does this. Because if not, it would have 100% been a Eurasian Nutcracker situation all over again. Yeah. So,
just for context, I had to go look up the score. So for that Eurasian Nutcracker game, Robbie scored 103, and second place was 82. And then third place was 81. Then it was 79. We're like, something's wrong here. Robbie's really good, but
not that good.
And we discover later on. So unsurprisingly, I'm a double doozy as well. It's a double doozy, unsurprisingly. It's one I have so many games. It can easily be in my top 10 at any time if I do a top 10 list, but there's so many other unique games I like, but I would never, to someone who knows Wingspan, I would never say no to play it. And I would never say no to teach it for someone who I think, could comprehend it for sure. And I've taught this game to a lot of people for sure. You're right on. The European expansion gets more cards and adds in a new ability that's the end of round ability. I own Oceania for since it came out, and I've never played it. But I've never, because Europe, as soon as we got Europe, I put those cards in the deck, and I've never separated the European cards from there. So they're just naturally in my deck, which it adds whatever 100 something more cards. So that deck, it's literally like multiple stacks of cards. Oceania I even have the upgraded bits for Oceania and still have never played it. So there's no reason for that. I just need to do it. And I didn't buy the Asia expansion just because I hadn't played the Oceania expansion either. So, because I own a lot of games, I can't get them all in. So at some point I'll eventually get Oceania in and play from there. So Double Double Doozy, man. Hadn't had one of those in a while, I don't think. Not a double. I don't know. Was Five Tribes a Double Double Doozy? We just talked about
Five Tribes was a Double Double Doozy.
Okay, 2 in a row.
So
then,
we're gonna have to find something that we're not that we think poorly of.
Right.
That feels like it would spoil the next episode. But we're gonna be critical in the next episode. Let me tell you that. That game is coming in. It's like a team that, like when Alabama loses a week and then it's like, I don't want to be the team that plays them next week kind of a deal. That's it's going to be good, y'all. But Wingspan, it always going to hold special place. And I think like it really, because we played it on my first trip up there, Jason, it does feel like it almost has this like special connection for us in a story. Like I think when I think of that first trip, I think of Quacks, Calico, and Wingspan.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Those are the three. So,
yep.
Well, thank y'all for tuning in. We really appreciate your support and you coming and listening to us get excited and ramble about some board games each week. So if you have any games that you want us to see or suggestions on things we can do to improve the podcast, whatever it may be, please let us know. We're happy to do this. I would love to know, for those of you who have been listening for a while, we're probably 10 episodes in to having this like sort of framework for how we discuss games. I feel like we've been doing like the set up and teach theme, gameplay, things like that. I would love to know, has that helped listeners? Has that helped y'all in like helping us break it down so we're not so scattered as we approach? Would love to know your feedback. So thanks so much, Jason. Any final thoughts before we send it out?
No, man, it was good. I enjoyed the discussion. Liz and I tried to play. We didn't get to, but I just went on a live game on BGA and it just gave me all the good feels. And so, cause I played it a ton on BGA. I've actually played way more on BGA than I have in person at this point. I mean, and on my app, I couldn't even tell you, cause I haven't played it on my app in a while, but I played it a ton on my app when I first got it. Cause it's so quick and so easy and you're just playing. So hope you guys liked it. Hope you guys enjoyed hearing us finally actually go deep. And let's be clear, like Robbie and I said, like we're trying to not go long today because we both got things going on tonight, but we didn't miss. There's so many other things we could talk about Wingspan. We literally could have had a 2-hour episode and still not cover everything about it, all the unique intricacies of it. So maybe one day this will. Yeah, exactly. I know, man. So all right, man. Hope y'all enjoyed it.
See y'all next week.
See ya.